like maybe I didn't mean to. Oh, we're live. Okay, so welcome to Judging by the Cover. We are the Amphibian Press book group. You can follow us on Twitter and find us on Facebook. And if you want to join in the discussion, use hashtag
JBTC.
JBTCGHG for Girl Heart Girl for today. Oh, which brings me to what we're going to talk about, except I skipped stuff. So I'm Marissa Frosch. I write fiction under the name Cameron J Quinn, and I'm joined today by Sara Voorhis, who writes fiction as V.S. Holmes, and Amy Spitzfaden. Technically Amy Spitzfaden both, but she writes under Amy Spitzfaden. So today we're going to talk about Girl Hearts Girl by Lucy Sutcliffe. This was Sarah's pick, so I'm going to let her introduce it.
So I actually discovered the author far before she wrote this book. I followed her on YouTube and whatnot. And I didn't even realize she was writing it until she had the release. And it's been on my to-be-read pile for a really long time. And I sort of thought like this was a great opportunity to finally read it. And it chronicles her like coming out story and coming to terms with being lesbian. And she's from the UK, so that's not it's not too different from the US, but it is definitely different in some ways. So I sort of wanted to check out that difference.
It was more different than I thought it was going to be, for sure.
Yeah. Oh no, Marissa froze. We're lost without the agenda, clearly.
There you are. There you are.
Uh-oh. Did you freeze again?
No, she's there. I see her moving.
It's not me.
Okay, there you go. Sarah and I can talk to each other, so.
Well, that figures.
Anyway,
we'll just gossip about you.
All right, so should I get started?
Yes, go.
All right. So my general response to this book was I did not like it. I really wanted to like it. I wanted it to have more of an impact on me, a more positive impact on me than it did, instead of making me like scream and read passages out to the people who were in the room with me. And the best I can say for it is I came away with a vaguely positive feeling for the protagonist, but it was not a good read for me.
Okay, so I'll go next. I had a better experience than Amy, but I also didn't get as much out of it as I wanted to, and I will go into that a little bit later. My overall feelings was I got into it by the end, but I kind of like with Hypnotist, our last one, I felt like she started it too far in advance, like ahead of what was going on. And I can see why she wanted to do that, but I also can see where it might have been better to summarize and get right to like the way they advertised the book from a marketing perspective, the way they advertised the book versus what you got. I wasn't expecting what I got. I think it would have been better if I had been properly prepared by the back of the book and stuff like that. Overall, I think it was a positive experience and I'm glad that I read it, but it wasn't quite what I wanted it, where I hoped it would be. So.
My turn.
Sarah. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it to some extent. And I think part of it is because I'd watched all of their YouTube videos. So I think the gaps in the book were filled in more for me because I had that background. And I was sort of wondering if that would translate to how much you guys like the book. So I see that it is. I do think that it started too soon for like what I expected for the book. I think it was almost as if she was trying to write two different books at the same time. Like one, this memoir of her falling in love with Kaylin and that relationship, which like is a really cool story. And then her coming to terms with being gay and then coming to terms with having to tell people, because those are two, I mean, they're they're not really different stories, but I think that they could have been two completely different stories and written differently. And I also feel like the book was a little short for trying to fit all of that in. But I think partially because I had followed her for so long, it was sort of like, well, I'm, you know, now I get to see more of what goes on inside her head. And I think that might have carried me through some of the slower parts.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you're doing this weird clicky thing. Do you have a mic in your headphones?
Maybe.
Can you hold it when you talk because it's hitting your scarf?
Yes, I do have a mic.
I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Is this better? Is this no longer clicky?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
It's hitting my bug pin is why it's like right
It sounded like a bug.
It did.
It's not a real bug. For once, I'm not wearing real dead animals. I don't think.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the style of the writing, and I'm going to go first because I'm running this, and when Sarah was speaking, it made me think of something. So for me, the issue with the writing was it was kind of like it was written in blog style, which was fine, except that I was not at all invested in her story. And so it was, you know, it was hard for me to get into it because of that. So, and the part that I was looking forward to most was her falling in love with Kaylin and that experience and accepting her of herself. And I felt like she skipped it. I felt like she glossed over it, and that was kind of a bummer for me. So that was my biggest issue with the writing, was I felt like we didn't get to see a lot of the important things, which goes to it being a little bit shorter than maybe it should have been.
Yeah.
And I do understand that it's YA, so I was anticipating that, but I thought that we would, like, when she goes to see her at the island, St. Kitts, is that what it is? She's like, she talks about when they first met, and you get to see that, and it's nice and everything. And then it's like, and then we explored the beaches and whatever. And it's like, well, I kind of wanted to see that part, you know? And I wanted to hear about their Skype conversations. I wanted to see the relationship part. And we didn't really get to. I'm glad that we saw the part where she was working through her anxiety and accepting herself. I'm really glad that we saw that, but I wish that we had also seen the relationship. And I feel like it was a lot to do with the style of the writing that did that. Yeah. So, Amy, you want to go next?
Okay, I'm going to be mean, guys. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not usually mean, but it is a book club. The biggest criticism I have of this book is that she didn't hire a ghostwriter. Her writing sounded like an 8th grader who was told that they're good because they use a lot of adjectives, and then she kept that idea and didn't develop her writing at all ever. And so I was like, she used whooping. I think I counted and it was like 10 times in the book, and it wasn't a very long book, and they whooped and were whooping, and I was like, oh. Another thing is that she included so many anecdotes that just made me feel like it was a senior year graduation speech that nobody but the friends who they're talking about in the speech care about. Like when she's coming home from play practice and then they all jump in the leaves. We don't.
Oh, I liked that.
It makes me feel better that someone liked it, because I was like, why on earth would you include this? So the fact that like it was something somebody likes makes me feel like the book's a little more legitimate, if that makes sense. Maybe the issue is it reminded me a lot of my younger sister, who has had no problems in her life ever. So
yeah, I can see that.
While she tried to sort of paint herself as an underdog, but unfortunately it wasn't like in the way that I feel really mattered. It was like, oh, I was bullied as a child, but I liked Harry Potter. It's like everybody liked Harry Potter. Like, I'm sorry you didn't have any friends who liked Harry Potter, but that doesn't make you special. So I found her very like trying too hard to win sympathy for the wrong reasons that she didn't deserve. And I want to get a little more into that in the privilege section, but kind of just, I feel like likely this book was very much, she could have just made it whatever she wanted. And she should have either had a ghostwriter or a lot more editing, I feel like. And this seems kind of like a first draft of her just kind of like writing down her thoughts about what happened. And I don't think it should have hit publication in the state it's in, is my feeling. But again, now that I know that like other people might have enjoyed the scenes that I would have axed hard, it does make it feel more legitimate.
Do you want to know why I like that scene?
I do.
Okay. Sorry.
No,
Sarah, I want to explain. So the reason I like that scene is because that's one of the places where she actually made me feel something, because jumping in the leaves was like a huge thing for me as a kid and even a teenager. Like when I had kids, my first thing as soon as the leaves started to fall is to rake up a big pile and let them jump in it. Like, so for me, it was kind of like I finally got to connect to her, because I didn't really like Harry Potter as a kid.
Okay.
And I felt like during those parts, it was like the anxiety wasn't going to beat her, which was my biggest fear throughout the book, was that she was really going to be debilitated by her anxiety. And I do feel like if she had gone more into the anxiety side, you might have been able to connect a little bit more. And again, this goes into, I think you're right, where it feels like it's a first draft. And like, because I would have gone through and been like, let's take some of this stuff out, but mostly I would have been like, let's actually talk about these things.
Yeah, she needed to do more show don't tell with her anxiety, I feel like, so we really went through the process. Instead she'd just be like, and I was feeling really anxious, and it's like, I'm sorry, but that's not what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
That sort of translates well into so I think, and I think a lot of like celebrity authors, you know, who are famous before they publish, I think that who don't get ghostwriters necessarily, though I think a lot of them probably do. It's sort of this rut that you get stuck in, I think, where you have an audience already. You already have people who have been following you on whatever platforms you're on. And so it's almost like this inside joke, like you said with the speech at the end of high school, you know, where you're including everyone in these jokes that only a few people understand. And I think a lot of it was caught up in like, well, I already showed everyone this on my YouTube channel, so like I don't really need to go into details. And like it's been a while since I followed their videos, or since I got caught up, I should say. So there were parts where I was like, I don't really remember it that way. And like her anxiety does come through more in the movies when you're watching her. But she didn't, I feel like she didn't really know how to convey that in writing. And I think her format for writing, like you said, it's a blog style almost, or vlog, for instance. And I sort of wonder how much of this sort of came out of her script writing for her movies, or her videos, I should say. And she also studies film, like she says in the book. So I think that writing just maybe isn't her thing. Yeah. But I do think she should have had maybe someone who was a little bit more practiced go over it. And I felt like there were definitely scenes where she showed the emotions, like the New Year's, when she finally tells her friends that she's gay and that she has a girlfriend and like all of this stuff. And to some extent too, when like towards the end of the book, maybe when she was sort of hitting her stride, I guess, she's talking about how moved she and Kaylin were about the impact that their videos had. Like I really felt all of that. But I think maybe in an effort to write a hopeful book, she forgot that you have to earn it in some ways, like as far as a writer to your readers goes, you know, like you have to earn them feeling like they've done it, that they've battled the anxiety, that they've come out to their parents, when especially given her audience, a lot of them have or want to. And I think that we didn't really win it. You know, it was sort of like we were told that we did, and it was like, well, I kind of wanted to see the shitty parts. Like, I mean, that's where you really make it worthwhile. So
I agree. I wasn't sure if you were done yet, but
No.
So we're
End
gonna
of
talk
turn.
yes, done. We're gonna talk about the place for this story, and I think as I was reading this, I kept thinking about a friend from high school who came out recently. So she's almost 30 years old before she came out, and as I was reading, I kept thinking, you know, I really wish that I hope she had someone that she came out to before. You know, I hope that she had someone through high school who she could talk to, because the one thing that I feel like this book did convey very well was the loneliness of it, of having this secret. And I just kept thinking back to her and just, you know, hoping that she had someone to talk to. So I feel like the place for this book is for people who are in their teens and questioning things and unsure and who feel alone. And I think probably paired with the YouTube videos, it could be very helpful for people. And maybe this would be helpful for them. Like, I'm not at that stage in my life. So, and the only time that I went through anything remotely like this, I was 23, 24. So it's not the same as when you're a teenager and you care, you know, more about what people think and all that. So, all right, Amy, do you think there's a place for this book?
I think there's a place. I do think there's a place for this book, just by virtue of it's something for, you know, LGBT, especially teenagers, to listen and connect with. So I feel like even as lacking as I feel it is, just it existing, it has a place. And I feel that I actually am a little bit, not concerned might be a strong word, because other people might not be as bothered by this as I am. But the fact that she so unsuccessfully painted herself as an underdog, I worry would give even lonelier kids a pretty bad fear of missing out. Because she has so many friends. She tries to make it seem like she didn't, but she just like friend upon friend upon friend upon friend. And again, we'll get into that later. But and she just like has all of these like really good things happen to her, and that's kind of what she focuses on. And I'm just worried that there will be kids out there having a really crap time who might like, who when they tell their friends might not be accepting. When they tell their parents might not be accepting. They might not find anybody to fall in love with. They might not have any friends to tell. They might just be alone. And kind of seeing this, like hearing, oh, here's my struggle with coming out, I'm a little afraid that it's going to hurt kids who have it a lot worse. But that being said, as I did say earlier, I do hope that it instead helps and gives kids kind of somebody to look up to, because, you know, maybe they probably watch her videos and maybe they want to be like her, and maybe they feel like she does seem to have a very classic successful pretty person thing going on. So maybe seeing, oh, somebody like that is like me, and it doesn't like only have to be alternative. It can kind of be this like mainstream cookie cutter appearance from what I see from her, and being, so that could be good. So I have mixed feelings, and I'm also straight, so I've not gone through it. So I don't feel it is really my place to say if there's a place for this or not. But just from my perspective, I think it's good for all of these stories to come out, regardless of what I personally feel about the writing. But I do worry about kids who might have had it harder. But then, actually, wait, I just thought of another thing, which is so many LGBT stories are so depressing that actually it might be really, really good that there's just kind of a cheerful, happy one, because there's so many like death and betrayal and just nothing good happens to you. That actually, like, so maybe a smooth story is yeah, I'm changing my mind. This is it could be hurtful. It could, I agree, it could be hurtful to kids who might feel like, you know, whatever, but overall we do need more super positive LGBT stories instead of always freaking making it just terrible, you know, in media. Most of that I feel like is fiction, but like just let's have some good stuff.
So I totally agree with Amy's second opinion. Though it's definitely like, and we'll talk about this later too, it is a very privileged version of the coming out story. But as a lot of people have sort of seen from the premiere of Love, Simon, which is based off of Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, which is a very, no spoilers, I haven't seen it yet, so don't worry. It's a very positive, it's not the end of the world, people aren't going to hate you version of the coming out story, and just, being queer in a first world country, and being white and queer in a first world country. And I think this book fits in the same place as that, which is making up for all of this super like tragic queer stories where it's like basically like you'll fall in love, but like don't worry, you'll kill yourself by the end of the story, which like isn't the message to send ever.
No.
And like obviously people are going to have trouble identifying with her in a lot of ways because she does have it pretty easy. But I think what they will identify with, maybe not regardless, but I think a lot more people will identify with her fear before she tells her parents, before she tells her friends, her fear as she's falling in love, just of her own feelings. And I mean, I think that's a lot of that is pretty universal, even regardless of who you're attracted to. And I have notes. I think like what Amy touched on with the, people who are scared to come out, and then seeing this woman, being scared, but then doing it anyways, and like everything going swimmingly for her and it not going swimmingly for them. I think while that's really frustrating, I think that they'll have already seen that a lot, and they'll already be scared, without seeing like, oh, she was scared, but it was fine. And I think for the people who are lucky enough to have parents and friends like Lucy's, and maybe they're still scared and they haven't come out yet to most of the people in their life, I think seeing her being scared and then just going and doing it anyways, despite her fear, and watching her process through that might be beneficial for those people, because then they'll be like, well, I mean, I know my parents aren't total assholes, so like, and my friends seem to accept other people, so, maybe that will help them feel comfortable doing it on their own. And I really hope that the kids who are inspired by her story and who have been inspired by her story have met with success with that. And I know I'm sure not all of them have, but and I do think I think we need more queer stories to get the whole experience. And I think Lucy's is just one of those. And I don't think it's necessarily the most groundbreaking, but I think it's still important, I guess. And I do wish it had been done a little bit better. And I hope you guys at least go and watch some of the videos, because it might be a little bit illuminating. Yeah, okay, that was sort of my roundabout discussion.
Cool.
I did want to go see the videos, but because I literally finished it like 5 minutes before we started, I didn't get to. But I was gonna.
I saw a video and I want to discuss it, but I'll do it after this video because there's a spoiler.
Yes, I wondered about that. I didn't want you to watch them beforehand, because I didn't want you guys to get that spoiler.
Okay, so third, we're going to talk about public displays of affection, and this kind of ties into Friends, because the reason that I brought it up is actually because of Rex in the book. But I wanted to talk about it because something that he said really kind of pissed me off. I'm sure lots of what he said pissed everybody off, but one thing in particular stuck out to me. And it was when he was saying that gay people need to flaunt it, and they're constantly kissing each other and holding hands in public. And the reason that was irritating to me is because I have seen plenty of straight people show public signs of defection.
That too.
Public displays of affection, and anyway, so what I wanted to say about it was that that's a personal choice and it has nothing to do with your sexuality. I think whether or not you want to kiss your significant other in public is more of a personal decision than who the other person is. You know what I mean? And that's a couple by couple decision, and it has nothing to do with sexuality. And like, get over it. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So, Amy.
Yeah, it like that kind of thing pisses me off so much because it just plays into the default idea that, oh, you know, hetero is normal and anything else is deviant and we shouldn't have to see anything besides the normal. With like, there's so much wrong with it. But interestingly, so I recently found out that an acquaintance of mine complains a lot when my husband and I do PDA.
Like to your face, or
no, behind my back. That's how I recently found it out. We are a, you know, hetero couple, and she's also hetero, as far as I know. And so there's nothing in it besides just like discomfort with physical affection. And just like that doesn't, I don't care because whatever. It's so upsetting to me to think about somebody, so many people who have that from everybody all the time when they want to be physically affectionate, because I can do it as much as I want, and I might piss off like one person who doesn't like it when couples kiss, you know, and it just like, it's so horrible to think about like how much easier it is for me. And also because especially, I mean, this isn't really a new thought, but kind of just like the scale of it kind of recently came into my mind when like I can so easily be like, I don't see this person very much, whatever. And so that just the scale of it kind of came into my head recently. And also I had another friend who is in a relationship with a woman, and they're both women. And she was saying that she's looking at places where they eventually might want to live and settle down. And she said, I don't want to move to a certain state because I can't hold hands with my partner in public there. And just like, it just, why does anybody have to care what anybody else does? And like that, but wait, I was coming around to something. I started ranting, and then
the scale of it is where you.
Yeah, it was before that. It was all playing into a bigger idea. So it's the scale of this. The default. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. I got too mad.
That's good. I'm glad you're mad.
Oh, I do remember it now. It's that physical PDA. Actually, I've been reading a lot about body language experts, and PDA is not only a result of a strong relationship, but a lot of the time helps keep a relationship strong because it keeps the chemicals going. And so the more you touch each other, usually the more you touch each other is a sign of the more you like each other, and the more that you touch each other, the more that you do like each other. And just that being not acceptable for certain kinds of couples is just like, no, it is healthy to touch each other. It is healthy to, you know, like, you obviously want boundaries, like in society and whatever. I mean, you know, maybe not everybody does, but just to be able to like squeeze a hand or like, you know, just, I mean, little things that I so take for granted, like walking up to my husband and squeezing his shoulder and being like, hey, what do you want for lunch? You know? And so I just like, I don't know. I want to do something about it. I want to like make everybody just allow it because it's so, you know, it's obviously not for everybody, but it can be such a good and healthy and powerful thing. And to not feel comfortable doing that and to not feel safe doing it, you know, it's not even a matter of comfort. Like, as I said, if I, you know, I'm a little too PDA around my husband, then worst that's going to happen is people are going to be like, get a room or something like that. But the LGBT community risks violence and murder at what, like, so I am feeling helpless and like I want to do something. And yeah, it's kind of my end PDA rant.
Right.
I think it's good that you touched on the safety. And what bothers me about the argument, like Rex's whole like, why can't you like just keep it in your pants? Like why are you flaunting it? Is well, first of all, like straight people flaunt their shit all the time.
All the time.
But also, especially in more progressive societies like the UK, and getting there like the US, obviously we have like so far to go, but it's better than it was. I always have this gut reaction of like, well, haven't we earned it? Like all of the stuff we've worked towards to just to exist and to safely even be with the people that we want to be with, let alone show it in public. Like, haven't we earned the right to flaunt it? Like, I'm sorry you have to look at it, but I have to look at you. So this is why I don't have friends.
Valid.
But that always sets me off. And it's also the whole like safety thing. It's so frustrating that like people notice it, even if it's not violence or aggression. They'll notice it and be like, hey, I support you guys, and stuff like that. And I think in some cases just the awkwardness of that is so frustrating, because it's like no one's walking up to straight people and saying that. And just the assumption that it's like I'm trying to show how cool it is. It's like, yeah, but I'm trying to be on a date, so I'm like,
or just like buy groceries.
Yeah, or just exist. I'm trying to exist.
Yeah,
and that's so frustrating. And I remember I got excited because I saw two men on a date together, and I was sort of like, oh, I didn't say anything to them because like I'm not rude. But I mentioned it to the person I was with, and they're like, well, I just try and ignore it, like, because that's the polite thing to do. It's like, well, it's a little different when you're part of the community, because it's like, yes, I see people who are like, out and proud about it, and saying screw society, I'm going to do what I want because I deserve to do what I want. And so there's that. But I totally get the like not wanting to do PDA because of safety and because of just the awkwardness. But I think that choice should, like Amy said, should come from the people doing it and their own personal preference, not because like, well, someone's gonna beat me to death with a tire iron, because that's not a good outcome for any choice.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to
Go.
jump in here. The Simon, what is it called? Simon.
The movie is Love, Simon.
Love, Simon. Is that the one where they all come out? All the straight kids come out to their parents as straight?
I think that might have been one of the trailers for it or the promo for it. I haven't. So I haven't been watching it even.
I think that's the one, and that made me laugh so hard. Mostly because it is true, like because Rex actually says that in this same conversation. That's what starts it. Is she tells him that she finally came out to her parents and she feels so good about it, and then he turns into douche nozzle. But I thought about that movie, and then you were just saying because nobody does that to straight people. Like nobody comes up and is like, "Yeah, I'm rooting for you." We should start doing that.
Right.
I will do it. Yes.
Anytime we see any public display of affection, we should be like, "Yeah, I'm rooting for you."
That would be so cute. If, like anybody, like if they just like show any kind of love, and everyone's like, "Yeah, be loved."
We do need more love and support in the world.
Just because, I don't know. I think it would be fun and entertaining and supportive.
You're gonna start doing that, yeah.
Definitely be awkward, but it would also be fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
If you're going to do this, guys, do it safely.
Just from behind the car.
They're going to kill you.
Anyway, where were we? Oh, we're on to privilege.
Yes.
So
which we've already
kind of talked about it all along, but that kind of goes into, I think, when she was going to tell her parents, I wasn't scared. Because the way that I mean, we didn't get to see a lot of her parents, but anytime that we did, it was all very positive and supportive. And also I kind of like, as a parent, I have paid very close attention to my children since they were born, and just seeing where they're going to be, because first of all, I don't want to push them into something that's not who they are, but also because I don't know, I'm a parent and I care. And
it should go without saying.
Right. And I felt like her parents probably already knew, and then they said that they did when they responded. But that's one of the things where I kind of wish that she had built it up a little bit more. And I also, as she was going through it, I kept thinking, you know, because it showed with her friends kind of ways that she would test them to see how they would think about it, how they would feel about it. Like during a slumber party, she says it doesn't matter what gender your partner is or something, and everyone agrees. And I kind of wish she had done stuff like that with her parents, because with friends, it sucks if they don't support you and they can't accept you for who you are. But with your parents, it's significantly more effective, I think, to you, like affecting. And I think if she had shown like ways that she kind of tried to test her parents a little bit to see what they were like, even just bringing up like her friend Nathan, like if that was me, I would have gone home and been like, Mom, my friend Nathan came out today to our friends and he told me he was going to do it, and I'm the first person he told, and just see what her reaction is, you know, just to test the waters. Because for me, family is very important. And I do have family members who I just don't talk about certain things with. And if they want to talk about things, I just kind of listen, because I don't want to alienate anybody, and I don't want to ruin the relationship. But it's different if it's fundamentally who you are. To, you know, you kind of have to tell them. But I feel like testing the waters a little bit might have been a good way to go about it if you're unsure of how they're going to react. And hopefully, you know, I wish I could say that all parents love their kids no matter what, but it's not the case. And even with my husband, when I got pregnant with our first child, I said, and it turned out to be a boy, suddenly it occurred to me that this child might be gay, and I'm still pregnant at this point. And I told my husband, I was like, well, I didn't say anything like that. It was more like a question, as I was testing the waters. I was like, what would you do if our son was gay? And he was like, I wish I could remember exactly what his reaction was, but I can't. It wasn't completely awful, but it wasn't the best reaction either. I do remember that my response was, well, if it comes to that, you like, if it comes down to me choosing my son or you, I'm choosing my child. So I wish I could remember what his response was, because that kind of makes him sound like an asshole. I don't think it was really that dramatic. I just wanted to be clear.
Well,
from the get-go.
Knowing where he comes from.
Right. Yeah. His family is, not all of his family, but pieces, are not as accepting as we'd like them to be. So yeah, anyway, but now it's like, it's not even a thing. Like,
yeah.
So that was, 8 years ago. So he's come a long way in 8 years, and I hope other people have too. So, all right, Amy, your turn.
Okay, well, I did hit on a lot of the privilege points kind of earlier. One of the main privilege things that really got under my skin, that I feel like just showed she was a little bit tone deaf and just still in her bubble, is the part where, without auditioning, she gets chosen to be Cinderella. I mean, I know she did audition, but he just like looks at her. She's never been there before, and he points and he goes, you should audition to be Cinderella. And she goes, me? And then she auditions. She's the first one and gets it. And I was just like, oh. And as I said, it reminds me a lot of my little sister, which I feel like is part of the issue. Although I was, when I was reading, I called her up. I'm like, Haley, I'm reading a book where it's like your high school experience if they tried to make you seem like the underdog. And she said, oh no. Yeah, she does know. I make it clear she does.
Good.
But yeah, like as I said earlier, it is good to have these more positive LGBT stories. But I feel like just I personally would have liked her to be more outside of her bubble. She kind of starts touching on it later on, and like, oh my, not everybody has supportive friends. Wow, these people send me the letters, but like, she breezes past some of the most like intense sounding letters that I would have really liked her to get into, and her emotional response to it, and like the global implications. And then she's like, and then I hugged everyone at these conventions I throw. And I'm like, can you like get a little bit outside of your privilege bubble and like into what's actually going on? And that got to me, like just the friend thing. We'll get to the friend thing next. Just like really, really privileged with friendship as well. And she tried to make it seem like she wasn't. And she kind of acknowledges her privilege toward the end. She starts to do that. And she also, I feel like in real life, has been using her privilege in a really good way to connect with these people and like show this positive love story and to be out and to use her pretty blonde, thin, people want to watch her on YouTube like thing to convey the story, which is wonderful. But I wish the book had done that more, because it was so just like her tiny little story. And it didn't feel like it connected to the greater web past her sort of like peeking out the door and into it. And that got to me. Just that, like, couldn't she have done a whole section on just like becoming aware of the girl in Russia who, if she wrote to her, if people knew that she wrote to her and were gay, would have been killed, beyond like, oh my, I got that letter. Like, I wanted like chapters on just like what that, like the reality of living in a world where that's the case. And I don't necessarily mean in the like maudlin, like making things bad for LGBT, but everybody needs to come to this realization. Every single person does. And like, kind of, I don't know, now I'm thinking like maybe I should write a book where I come to that realization and not leave it to the LGBT community to do it. I don't know, maybe exhibiting my own privilege here. So, but yeah, I would have liked to get a little more out of her bubble.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a super, super privileged background that she came from, and for which I'm happy for her. That's great. And I think what I would have liked was, like you said, for her to acknowledge it more. I would have liked for her to sort of acknowledge it from the standpoint of, I have all of these things going for me. I have friends, even if I can't tell them that I'm gay yet. I have friends, I have family, I have, at least enough money to survive, and seems to survive pretty well.
Go to college of choice.
Yeah, exactly. Though I don't know what the college system is like in the UK as far as money goes. But, and she's white, and, she can just pick up and move to a different country and it's fine. I would have liked her to take all of that and say like, and I still really struggled with my anxiety, with, being gay, with falling in love, with just existing as a teenage person in this world, which is hard enough. And I think that could have been really powerful. And I think in a lot of ways she tried. I think by showing, the good parts and the shittier parts, I think she tried, but I think we didn't sort of come full circle with the like, and now looking back, I see. And again, maybe that was because she was like trying to go for the hopeful, like looking forward thing. And I think it is valuable to see like a story where someone who is privileged is struggling, but like we need the other stories about the less privileged people more, because those aren't stories a lot of people have heard, at least outside of those communities. And I mean, the whole LGBT movement has been figureheaded, pretty much by white gay men, and to another extent, white gay women. And a lot of the stories, the victorious stories that we hear, are theirs. And I sort of wish she had acknowledged a little bit more how much she is standing on the shoulders of giants in that respect. And I'm sure I hope she realizes it. I'm pretty sure she realizes it. I feel like in Kaylin's videos, they sort of touched on it. But when you're able to come out, and when you're able to have these conversations without, the fear of death or whatever, I think it's really important to look back and be like, well, thank you for, to the people who died, who suffered, who fought so that I could do this and have it be okay. I was actually just talking about this with my mom. And just the, I don't know, the power of that, and sort of, there's a whole other sense of community that comes from that. And I think that it would have been really valuable for her to acknowledge that and even go into it to some extent. And again, I don't know what it's like in the UK. I don't know exactly, the history of LGBT rights. So this is like another other country thing. Like, tell us in the comments, like last time. And so maybe part of that, maybe her lack of acknowledgement is coming from that too. So I don't know. That's it.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah, I did feel like you're right. She should have probably acknowledged why things worked out when she finally got through to coming out. I did feel like she appreciated her friends a lot, and I got the idea that she appreciated her parents, but it's not necessarily in the book. It's just my take from what was in the book. So that's just, anyway, I wanted to say that. And lastly, we're going to talk about friends. So this is actually probably one of the bigger issues that I have with the whole thing. And it's not her need for friends, because we're social creatures. It's her unwillingness to be by herself, coupled with when she clings to toxic relationships. Rex, again, we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about. The second that he came out with putting her down after she came out to her parents, and it was such a big deal for her, that would have been it. Like, I don't care if I have to be alone. I'm done, And she was so afraid to be by herself that she would rather be in a relationship with someone who treated her literally like dirt. And I feel like, and she does talk about it once she finally, ditches him, but she doesn't ditch him until she has an alternative. And I feel like people need to be comfortable enough in their own skin to be by themselves sometimes. And that's really hard, but it's also something that I've done a lot. So I know it's possible, but it's also important for your own health, mental health, not to let people treat you like that. And I can't, like, when she talks about how much he brings her down, I think that's really important to acknowledge. And that she was literally in bed for days. Like, people have this power over us, but only if we let them. So anyway, I loved her friends in high school, and I understood her loneliness as a kid to some extent. I did have friends in elementary school, and I had one really good friend like my entire life. So I got really lucky right out of the gate. And it wasn't until I got married and moved to North Carolina where I knew no one, and no one really, it was like, that was probably the scariest experience of my life. And it was very depressing and alone, but not nearly as bad, I think, as having someone in my life who was treating me badly would have been at that time. So, yeah, just, I'd like to acknowledge the toxicity of Rex in this book, and make sure people understand that sometimes it is better to be on your own for a little while, because I think she would have found Leah regardless of if she had waited to get rid of Rex, probably sooner, because Leah sounds like a pretty cool person. and they were in a class together. So, and I did love her high school friends, and their reaction was exactly the reaction that it should be, which was basically just, you could have told us sooner, and we love you no matter what. So, all right, Amy.
Friends are an interesting thing for me, especially right now. I'm in the process of letting go of some of my own toxic relationships that I've held on for too long. But I think, kind of like what Sarah said about privilege, is I would have liked her to acknowledge that she had a lot of friends. She acknowledges she has good friends, but she still sort of keeps this lonely girl, not popular outsider thing going on. When she had friends from the time that she was 11 until like forever, except for the one time when she just has Rex. And I would have liked to see that being like, just from a regular like high school teenage perspective of being like, even though I had, like, looking back, I had such an incredibly amazing support system, I still felt lonely. I still felt isolated. And like, it doesn't even only have to do with the LGBT thing. It just has to do with being a teenager and being a human and like never feeling like you're good enough. And instead, it just, from this outside perspective, I'm like, oh, well, if that's not popular, what does that say about me, who had to ask to get invited to a birthday party senior year of high school that everybody in my class was going to and I wasn't invited to? And then they said no, and then I said, no, come on, let me go. And they're like, okay, fine. Like, that was my high school experience. I had one friend, and they went to Germany for 3 months. Like, it wasn't good for me. So just like hearing her be like, oh, we weren't really the popular kids, but all 700 of us really loved each other. Like that's how it read to me. And I'm like, no. Like, if it was the two of us really loved each other, sure. But like, there were just masses, and then there were her theater friends and her school friends and these friends and that friends. But oh no, she wasn't the popular one. Like, that I did not sympathize. I hated that. I
forgot to talk about the popular kids.
Oh god, the popular kids were douchebags.
And they should have been called out.
Yeah, like, honestly, okay, the school can't do anything about it because it ended, but guess who can? The police.
Okay,
file harassment charges.
I just meant stand up for yourself. I didn't mean get the police involved.
I don't get the police involved. Like, standing up for themselves is not going to do so good, because if they're bigger and can physically subdue you, or if you just don't have the power to have your words affect them, just be like, I'm not going to deal with this, but I am going to file harassment charges because you need to be held accountable for your actions. Like, I think people should be reported more to the police, but I have always been a tattletale. That is my core essence.
Snitches get stitches, Amy. I don't actually think that.
Yeah, no, I literally just could be not so much standing up for yourself, because the bully doesn't matter. The popular douchebag doesn't matter. Like, what matters is you standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And you knowing that you have the power to stand up for yourself. And yes, if it becomes physical, then the police should become involved. But like, I mean, I think about like rape survivors, whether or not the person is convicted, if they get up on the stand and tell their story and are like, that person did this to me, and like confront the person, they feel better. Like 9 times out of 10, that helps them heal. So like, I'm a big believer in standing up for yourself and saying what you need to say. Even, I mean, it's hard. Confrontation sucks, but do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think that covered. I think that covered my friend things. I was just saying, I think that covered my idea on the friends.
So I mean, I was kind of envious of the amount of friends she had, but I definitely connected with her being lonely, even though she had these friends, because she had the secret. And I totally get why she hung on to Rex. I was bullied really badly when I was in elementary school. Like, I had a kid light my hair on fire, like bad. And and I wasn't like accepted or popular or anything. And while I had some like what I call friends, it was basically like my mom arranging play dates with other people's parents, not realizing that like I really didn't want to see these people. So like I technically had like friends, but in a lot of ways that was almost worse, because it's like, you know, you could have this thing, but like they also don't talk to you when you're actually at school. You know, when no one's watching, there's no one, you know, paying attention to you or whatever. And at least what I've noticed in my own life, how that translates to my adult relationships is I cling to toxic people like way after they're super toxic, because in my mind, like, well, at least it's not, you know, always toxic, and at least, you know, they're not as awful as kids were back then. And like I'm trying to get better about that, or at least like talking to people when I feel like, you know, they're being either purposefully or inadvertently toxic. So in a lot of ways, I totally got where she was coming from with Rex, and that was actually one of the more one of the stronger places where I identified with her. Like still a terrible relationship, and I'm still really happy she got out of it. And you know, definitely not like a thing to think is a good thing, but it's understandable. And I think too, there's this difference between like having friends and having people who you can really like confidants. Because like I've definitely had, you know, friends in the past who like they basically don't know me. You know, they know me on a superficial level, but they don't like really know me. And that's, I'm sort of getting away from that more now, like as an adult, because I just simply don't have the patience. But it's something that I have noticed with my mom. She has a ton of friends, and she maintains all these friendships, and you know, she has this very active social life, and she's an extrovert. And so reading this, Lucy kind of read as an extrovert to me in a lot of ways, or at least like an ambivert or whatever that's called. And I think maybe that's why she needed the friendship so much. Cause like I'm totally happy being alone. Like I definitely need friends, and like I'm incredibly heartbroken when I lose a friend, or when I, you know, I'm hurt by my friends, but you know, I'm also comfortable being alone with myself. And so I sort of wonder if Lucy is an extrovert because of that, which would make a lot of sense, I think, to me. So yeah, that was my friend rant.
Okay, I'm going to steal it again about friends real quick, because you said something that I think is important that I should clarify, that I said. I think I said that with Rex, the first time that he was negative towards her, I would have dropped him. But it wasn't that he was negative, because you said you talk to your friends when they hurt you, like inadvertently. And that's an important distinction to make. Like, if he said, you know, I don't understand why gay people have to come out and flaunt their gayness, and then she said, you know what, that's really offensive, and I just like opened up to you about something that was really personal to me, and he was like, well, crap, I didn't mean to hurt you, then that would be a different situation than the way it went
right
in the book. It was very that relationship was toxic pretty much from the second that she came out, but she gave him a chance, and I totally understand that. But then when he started, you know, when it consistently got worse, and it got to the point where she was in bed, like, I just feel it's important to know when it is time to leave a friendship. And this is kind of one of those things that we were supposed to talk about in Thug, and we kind of missed, was with, what was her name, Haley?
Oh yeah,
because she gives her a chance, and then she can't let it go, you know, of her own prejudice, and to see even her friend, who she's been friends with since she was 11. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. So I think that's it. I don't have next month's book cover.
What are we reading next month?
We're reading.
Thank you for asking. I wasn't going to.
We're reading. Yeah, you're supposed to buy it, Misty.
Oops, Misty.
I didn't say Misty. I said Missy.
Oh, it came through as mystery.
I opened up a thing, so my internet's probably like, oh no, we're too thin.
Yeah, that's
because I have to look up the name. It's the girl with 7 names, I think is
Oh,
what it's
yeah,
called,
yeah.
or 5 names, or
I think it's 7.
I think it's 7 too.
Remember correctly.
If I can find the files.
Well, I'll go order that if I'm supposed to buy it.
Hold on, I will find her name. Reading list. Did I add your book, Amy? I don't know if I did. No, I didn't. Amy, I'm gonna have to look. What did you? Oh no, I did. We're good.
Yeah. Okay. We can do this later.
Anyway, sorry. The Girl with 7 Names by Hyeonseo Lee. It's Hyeonseo.
Okay.
I'm really sorry. I would have looked up how to pronounce this before if I had thought about it.
Well, we'll pronounce it correctly next time.
Her last name is Lee, yes, and I will pronounce it next time at the right at the beginning of the video. But it's The Girl with 7 Names. It's another memoir, and it's my pick. And it's just about she escaped from North Korea and then she went back to save her family like years later.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I watched a little. It was like a clip of her speaking, and it said at the end that she wrote this book, so I added it to our list right there.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about next time, and
taking a break from the privilege.
Yes. Only in like the most epic way possible.
That's good.
From the UK to North Korea. Here we go. All right, so we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.